Welcome to The Mystic Lens, a podcast by Current Collective Church where we explore the spiritual path through stories of transformation from real people in our community and explorations of Christian tradition through a mystic perspective. Our hope is that these conversations will help us feel even more connected to God, ourselves, and each other, inspiring us to live more expansively from the well of living water within. To learn more or connect with us further, visit thisiscurrent.org.
Amy, welcome to the Mystic Lens podcast. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much.
I love how we were just talking about just some of our mutual history and some of the church backgrounds and things. And I just think it's best that we just jump in,
Yeah.
It's just like, I tend to get in this predicament where I end up having really great conversations with people, and then I'm like, I should have hit record 20 minutes ago.
Right.
So I'm kind of feeling that vibe right now. So would love to pick up right there, and then we can talk more about your book, Words Like Honey. And I have a few things. I actually did highlight a few things to talk about and even wrote some things. So for those watching, I got this in the mail and I highlighted some things, wrote some things down here. So we'll definitely get into that. But sort of your inspiration behind it, we both come from, and if it's okay to name, we both come from a vineyard background. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that's kind of, a great on-ramp for us to kind of meet and know each other's histories some more. But you have ventured through a lot of different seasons over the years, and it seems like parenting has been the thing that has been a huge passion for you, even as I read the introduction. So maybe can you just bring some of our people up to speed of a little bit of your background and what your passion is?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yep, absolutely. I wasn't actually raised Christian. I wasn't raised in church. And so when I think I became a Christian when I was like 17. And so I had like a totally different view of parenting and just life in general, I guess. And so when I like entered the church and became a Christian or became a parent, I had this like huge disconnect. It was like my parents had talked to me differently. My parents had taught me things differently. And I was really, I was kind of taken aback by some of the things that I was witnessing and some of the things that I was hearing in church. But I was really young, a new mom. My husband had a kid when he was 15. And so we got married when I was 19. His son was already 6. So I was just like built-in mom. His biological mom was not around. So it was just me. And so, I really did not feel confident in knowing what I was doing. And so I wasn't going to say anything or speak up, but I didn't like what I was seeing around me. I felt like I should probably copy it because they knew what they were doing, right? And so I tried for a little bit, but it just didn't feel right. And so as I got older and we had more kids, I kind of felt the confidence to be able to be like, you know what, there is a different way, and kind of to start talking to moms and dads. My husband even got on board with me and he would talk, we actually did some coaching together for parents for a while, and just trying to teach people that, one, there's a different way to parent, especially especially Christian parents who were parenting in a way that was like really authoritarian and harsh. And, so we're trying to teach people there's a different way to parent. And if you are a Christian, you don't have to do this thing that everybody is saying you have to do. And you don't have to perpetuate these ideas. And then also there's a different way to kind of teach your kids about God and faith and humanity. And just kind of became a passion of ours.
Yeah, well, and you have, I think I read, was it 9 kids?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say I was reading through your introduction, and this was a couple weeks ago, so I'm pulling it up right now. I'm like, I believe it was nine
Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
Kind
So
of crazy.
okay, so what's interesting to me, and maybe you can speak a little bit of this to a little bit of this. There seems to be in Christian circles, and for the context of the people that kind of orbit our space, we have people that come into our space that come from a Christian background. I call them even sometimes like an open-minded traditionalist in some ways. Many people do have that sort of background. People come through another door that is more of the spiritualist space, the New Age space, and so we have an intersection of those two, generally those two types of people in our community and that listen to this podcast. But it seems to me that in the Christian world that I come from, parenting and having kids is like an extremely high value, and people are. It's like there was a trend for a long time that like if you were a pastor, you had to have 5 kids at least. Like that was the thing. It's like the prerequisite is minimum of 5 kids. And
Yeah.
then you have these people and they're like 26 years old and they're on their 5th kid or whatever. You're like, man, you guys didn't have any
Yeah.
other hobbies? Like
Okay, but
nothing else?
can we also say, because we're both from the Vineyard, that there was also a trend that to be a pastor you had to wear a Hawaiian shirt, like
Right? That's
5
true.
kids and Hawaiian shirts.
5 kids, Hawaiian shirts, and just repeating John Wimber. I'm just a fat guy trying to get to heaven, and it's
Right.
like I'm just changing God's pocket, and the kids are like, crypto, what? Like that's just how it goes. And there's this trend of like family and big families, and I have 2 kids, 9 and 11, and for us in our own discernment, we felt like we were to and through, and so that we have the 2 kids, but we love our kids and things. But anyways, I want to. I'm asking you, setting up. You'll find, I'm a long form kind of guy.
It's
So,
good.
but the other side is like the spiritual community that I'm seeing a growing trend in an interest in parenting. But there's been, by and large, a lot of the circles that I sit in, different meditation circles, yoga spaces. There's a lot of singles, or a lot of people who are even in their 40s and just now considering maybe marrying someone. And there's like a big apprehension towards that. But there's been a move recently towards people welcoming in parenting, even as a form of spiritual practice in their life. And that's what I have found. Can you speak a little bit to your desire to be a mom, and that it doesn't seem like you are just trying to be the typical pastor, hit the number of 5 kids so that the ordination looks better. Like,
Right.
what was that stir to continue to keep having kids, and with that, like inviting people who are curious about wanting to start a family, like what some of that joy is like, and sharing that with them?
Yeah. So for us, okay, yeah, I'll start up by saying like years ago I had to write a blog post because I was getting so many comments, and the blog post was titled, it was back when we had 8 kids, and it was, we have 8 kids, but we sure as hell aren't the Duggars. So and we get questions all the time. We're like, no, we're not this, we don't believe this, we don't think you have to have 1,000,000 kids, I don't think you have to wear dresses. I go on and on and on. And for us, so we had a child when we got married, right? We had a 6-year-old
Yeah.
because my husband had that kid. So for us, it was like there was no point in waiting to have kids, right? We already had one. We weren't going to get that time alone. So we had our daughter pretty quickly, and then our son, and then we kind of like actually felt like, okay, this is good. Like we were so young at the time. We're like, if these are all our kids, then like literally we could be done, and our kids will be like 18 years old and we'll still be in our, early 30s.
Yeah.
And like, we will like, this will be awesome. But then we're like, okay, well, let's just, after a few years, we're like, kind of felt like, let's just have one more. Okay. And this is when everything changed because we had twins. So it was like kind of a joke for us. Like, oh, we said, let's have one more. And now we have 2 more. And And then, it was just like, we realized how much we loved our babies, and we just loved our growing family. We already had 5 kids at this point, unintentionally. And it was just, all right, we'll just have more kids.
Doesn't
we,
that change the dynamic though? Like, at what point does it just like blur together?
um, it was, sorry, it was, sorry, I got a call.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah,
It
at what
was,
point does it
it
feel
did,
like,
you know
yeah,
what? I think it was after the twins that it was just kind of, um, it just, okay, so what's funny is it wasn't like an intentional decision. It was just, we didn't intentionally not try to have kids, It was just, we moved to Washington to church plant. And, our twins were like 1.5 or so. And, we just were kind of like really focused on that, not really paying much attention, and we got pregnant.
while church planting, that's
Well, church planting,
a
yes,
lot.
it is a lot. By the time that baby was born, he was growing, and we moved back to California. We just it was kind of just a joke at this point, and not a joke to just let's keep having kids. It just we liked our kids, and we just didn't care. We're like, if we have kids, we have kids. We like them. We thought after our 9-year-old, who is our second youngest, we're like, okay, that's definitely it. 8 kids. Where we actually had the midwife, the midwife's assistant when I had our third youngest. She was like, and she's like, I see. She was very spiritual, not Christian, but very, very spiritual. And she said, I really just see you guys with 9. I see 9. Okay. And this was baby number 7 we were having, and we laughed. We're like, no, this is definitely it. We're done now. She's like, no, I see you with 9. And so I kept having that in the back of my head. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, whatever. If we have another one, it kind of just fits with, what we were told by her. And then we had our 8th child. And then we thought we were done for sure. And like, he was like 7 years old. We're totally done. We were actively trying to be done. And then we got a surprise. And I laughed, and I literally texted the midwife's assistant right away. And I was like, you did this to us. You said 9, and it's been 7 years since we had a baby. But that 9, you did this to us. So, and now we have a 2-year-old. So our kids are between the ages of 2 and 30, because the oldest is my husband's son. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a range for sure.
It
That's
is
cool.
definitely
And
range.
I mean, 9's a significant number, and so that's cool. I think that's. I mean, I could only imagine, what
It's kind of 2
life is
different
like for
lives,
you.
It's like we have
Yeah.
the adults, and then we have the kids. It's really like kind of strange, but it's fun. It's I don't know. I think we talk to our kids, especially our older ones, as we get older, and as we've learned and grown, and we're like, we want to make sure that we are still meeting your needs, even though we have these little kids to take care of. So we don't want to neglect you. We need to you just need to talk to us. Let us know what you need. Let us know if you're missing something, because we obviously can't be in all places at once. And especially with, adult kids who are, the needs just change. They don't go away.
Yeah.
And so we've had to be really intentional to just be like, reach out to us, we're here. Tell us what you need. Because we obviously have a lot going on, but that doesn't negate that you are one of our children, and your needs, they still matter. So it's kind of how we do things.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like that. I mean, like it's like a special calling or a special office, if you will, to have that, because I feel like any parenting takes a degree of awareness, and it takes intentionality. And so whenever you are beginning to spread that between many different kids who need different ones need different things, but to even have like the emotional intelligence to know and pick up on who your child is telling you who they are. I mean, that's one of the biggest things I
Yeah.
feel like has been allowing my kids to tell me who they are, and
Hmm.
watching how that evolves over the years. Now, like my daughter, she's starting middle school next week, and just learning who she is, allowing her to inform me instead of me putting everything on her. And I
Hmm.
think that comes with, yeah. So I think first of all, I think it does take, in your situation, definitely a degree of like already an internal knowing of your own self to be able to learn your kids and what they need. Do you feel like that's something that has been like a skill that you've had to develop in real time over the years? Do you feel like that's just kind of something that comes natural to you to have a pickup on who your kids are?
Yeah, it's definitely something we've had to really be intentional about. Well, at least for me, I think my husband's pretty good at it naturally. Um, he is really good with people, and he really is understanding. And but I am not. Naturally, I kind of just am like, so I really do. I focus on myself a lot. It's just something I've done since I was a kid. But I'm aware of it. So because of that, I have been able to kind of just be intentional about looking outside myself and, seeking out, each child and trying to figure out, what their needs are and making sure they feel heard and making sure they feel, secure. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I just had a conversation with my daughter yesterday about like that. It's my job to make sure that she is stepping into independence. That like
hmm.
whatever the graduation goal is that she's able to do things, for herself, and then so that there was a whole kind of conflict that sparked that, but we'll leave that there for now.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the things I wanted to talk about specifically in regard to your book as well is, and what we were talking about before, a couple things. But one is allowing your kids to tell you who they are, and
Mm.
responding to that. One of the things that you were mentioning beforehand, and I want to let you have the liberty to share as much or little of that, but I guess just to hint at it is like you were seeing certain things in some of the spaces that you were in relationship to parenting, and specifically in relationship to Christianity and the religion that we were part of, are part of. Like, what were some of the signs that you were seeing that was saying like something intuitively is not making me feel like this is the best
Mhm.
path for us to be stewarding these kids, like, and then also like with that learning who they are, so often we have we feel this responsibility to form them and shape them in a particular way. And I think that there is some importance to that, but there's also like a balance between how much am I shaping the child, and then how much am I like indoctrinating them, or
Yeah.
like forcing them something that may not even be there, and
Mhm.
so what were some of the things that you were seeing, and then how have you learned how to balance out some of
Mhm.
that throughout the years?
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of the Christianity that parents were giving their kids was really just based in moralism and a whole lot of just behavior, just do this, don't do that. And it really kind of neglected the heart of God. Um, what we've tried to do over the years is kind of in giving our kids a foundation of this is the God we believe in, is just letting them kind of know who he is, his character, the fruit of the spirit. Like this is God, right?
Yeah.
God is patient, he is loving, he is kind and long suffering, he is merciful. These are the things we want our kids to know about who God is. But in a lot of Christian parenting spaces, it's just a lot of things that parents were saying like, um, don't question me, don't question the Bible, don't question your pastor. Just be on your best behavior. God's always watching. Like just these
Hmm.
things that kind of create a fear. They don't really show kids who God is, and um, they they kind of teach kids that like knowing God is behaving well and
Mm.
is being for certain things and against other things, and um, you know, acting a certain way, and all of these things that um, not only do they make not only do they lead kids to kind of judge others as they are kids and then get older, but also they make it so that they feel uncomfortable with themselves, right? Because every single person, child or not child, is going to have thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever, that may not align with what they think they should be. And then they will struggle with that, and it will be, just create a challenge for them in their life. And when we have a young kid who feels like, oh, it's not okay that I'm wondering about this thing, so I'm just going to stuff it inside, there must be something wrong with me because I don't know that I agree with that, or because I'm wondering about that, or because I'm thinking this thing. And then, the child, they push it down. They kind of feel like there's something wrong with them, or, whatever the case may be. And so we have kids being raised in church to feel, to kind of hide themselves and then kind of judge others.
Yeah.
If that, I don't know, if that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think that at least what I've seen is, and in my experience, and just in Christian culture in general, it people are so obsessed with what you believe and how
Oh,
you know, how you identify and as Christian and not, and what that means. And to me, I always come back to, the fruit of the Spirit is a really great, one of the better things that Paul had to say. Um, and then, even Jesus, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks, you'll know a tree by its fruit. And it's like, to me, I just think that, and I just wrote a email to our community this last week that, in my view, Jesus didn't want you to be a Christian. He wanted you to be free, and it didn't matter as much to me. Like, we're specifically non-creedal. We don't like a lot of the things that would qualify us as orthodox. We don't really. I don't mind that
mhm.
I'm not playing within certain lines anymore.
Right.
And so I think that with kids though, like there is this, they have the curiosity. I love your quote that you used from let's see if I can just read it. The Rachel Held Evans quote.
Mm.
Those who say that having childlike faith means not asking questions haven't met too many children.
Right.
And it's like kids do have questions and they are trying to find out who they are, but
Hmm.
their environment, if it's mirroring back to them a very narrow understanding of that expression, we're potentially cutting off who I think divinity is seeking to express through the uniqueness of this child. And so, how do you balance, and maybe this, and I don't want to like put you too much on the spot, but how do you balance like your faith, like Christianity, like with just developing the person in just like their own skills of like self-awareness and kindness and things? Like, what's the balance for you between like training up a child in the way they should go, that meaning through beliefs or through actions? And what does that all look like, and the balance look like for you?
Um, so we really value asking questions and just being really transparent. So, one is we will tell our kids, what we believe. This is what I think. Um, and we will let them ask their questions, and we don't we don't shun their questions or put them down for them. We allow them to have their thoughts and their doubts, um, and when they, come to us and they ask, well, what does this mean? Or, you know, I don't understand this, or maybe they present an idea that maybe doesn't even align with what we think. Our response is typically, well, you know, I believe such and such. Let me hear your thoughts. Well, what do you think? We might send them somewhere else. We might say, you know what, I actually don't know, because I think that's really important, is when
Mm.
we don't just make up an answer, or we just say, I don't know. This is something I'm not sure about. I don't know. What do you think? Or, I don't actually know about this, but you could talk to whoever, and they might have some information for you or some thoughts for you. We just like to have things really open, so that
Mhm.
it's not, this is the thing you have to think or else.
Yeah.
It's, this is what I have come to understand, and I would love to share this with you. And feel free to talk to me and share your thoughts. And I think that I think that like kind of connection and that openness is not just important for faith, but like all of parenting, right?
Hmm.
It's how we connect with our kids, and let them know that they are safe um, to be who they are and talk to us, and communicate and ask their questions and have their doubts, and whatever the case may be, we want them to know they're safe and secure, and that they're valued, and that their voice matters. And how we answer their questions, and how we listen to them and their ideas is like that is it's just so important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I feel like that's something that we've always practiced, and it's something that my wife and I I mean, I'm 35, I'm almost 36, and I feel like I always keep saying that. By the way, I was having this idea this morning. I'm like, I said it. I was on a podcast Friday. So I'm 35, almost. It's like, yeah, no, duh. That's what comes after 35. Why do I keep
Right.
saying this? It's just a habit.
You're like
I'm,
you're like the 9-year-old. I'm 9.5.
yes. And why am I so excited about being 36? Well, I don't understand why I keep saying this. So sorry, I had to just pause myself. Wait a second, man. Just 35's fine. You can just say 35. It's no problem. Um, Anyway, 35, and I think I still like it's been in my 30s to feel real free. My dad's great. I grew up with a much different pastor's kid experience than many people. Very, very low key. I remember going to Vineyard conferences with, death metal t-shirts and everything, and my parents didn't care.
That's
And
awesome.
that's kind of some of the Vineyard too. They were cool with
Yeah, for
that.
sure.
But I did have
Yeah.
a guy ask me, like, I had like an insane clown posse t-shirt on. Shows you how weird I was, and as in eighth grade, and I did have a pastor ask me. He says, "Are they Christian?" And I'm like, I said, "Kinda," and he's like, "There's no kinda," you know. And
Kinda. Oh, kinda.
but you're cornering a 13-year-old.
Right.
What do you expect me to say? Like,
Right.
and I remember feeling so put on the spot. And even my dad was kind of like, because he's kind of then questioning my dad's parenting of like, why are you letting a kid
Right.
wear a Cannibal Corpse t-shirt or Insane Clown Posse t-shirt at a church conference, And I think that is something I'm grateful that my parents gave me the freedom for that, and I wouldn't have let my kids do that. I just wouldn't want to deal with that conversation.
Right. Right.
Um, but actually, this brings up another fun thing that I actually kind of want to talk to you about. Like, yeah, is it Christian, and like how important is that, when we're teaching our kids? We were just kind of mentioning some of that, but I just feel like, yeah, like allowing the kids to be who they are. And my wife
Mhm.
and I didn't feel that freedom as much until recently,
Yeah.
all the way now in our 30s, because there was
Almost 36.
almost 36. 35, almost 36. I,
Yeah.
I feel like fully like in my adulthood where I'm like, dude, like, and a lot of it though comes down to relationally, I feel great with my dad. But whenever it comes down to matters of faith and belief, there's always I feel like a low key tension around these things. And I've always I always have felt a sense of being misunderstood, probably Q being in eighth grade and wearing all black at church conferences and things or whatever. But like, I finally feel non-anxious about that. So creating an environment for your kids to be able to have that space, I think is really a real beautiful thing. I do any of your kids, because you have adult kids, like you said, all the way
Mhm.
up to 30, and it's like, again, like they're 30, almost 31. And like, do any of your kids have differing like belief systems than you at this point? Like,
Yeah,
and how, yeah, I guess we'll start there.
definitely. I think I have. Um, I'm looking at my adult kids. So we have three adult kids right now. My twins are about to turn 18, so they're on that could potentially be called adult soon.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, the three oldest, they have their own belief system, and we hold space for those that are, where things are different. And I just kind of think that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. You would think so, but I mean, a lot of people's experience, especially those in our community, they come from places like there's a few people that come to mind right now that are not even on like a speaking relationship with their
Mm,
parents.
yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to not that they don't get along or anything, but it's that they just can't reconcile where they're at theologically
Mhm.
or even more broad than that. Just like some of the how do I say this without sounding rude in any way, but like there's like an adolescence about like the way that the parent is acting. I'm thinking of one person in particular, and it's like there's this like very elementary way of engaging. Well, if you're not going to think this way like me, then, and they're just always kind of like putting them on blast all the time because of this
Yeah.
one thing, this
Right.
one section of their life. And it's made this person slowly alienate
Yeah.
from them. And it's like, that's super sad to me
Yeah.
because I think that, the only real ministry we have to do is that of reconciliation. So how do we like move more towards that? But we keep putting up these walls of hostility that apparently the gospel is supposed to bring down. So
Yeah.
like, why does that keep being hills that we die on?
Mhm.
So I don't know if you have anything to mention with that too. We can
Yeah. I think
converse.
so much of I think so much of Christian parenting is just fear based. You
Hmm.
know, um, and it's a cycle, because of what these Christian parents were taught in the church and from their families when they were younger and taught about God. It's all about, you know, behavior. It's all about, doing the right thing and making sure you get to heaven and, all
Right.
this stuff. So then they become these adults in the church who are now raising kids who are afraid. They're afraid their kids aren't going to get to heaven. They're afraid that if they don't do something right, then it's going to destroy their kids. And now their kids are going to be on the wrong path and they're not going to, make it. And so they are so afraid. There's so much fear.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of Christian parents would recognize that. I don't think they would call it fear, but in my experience, that's what it is. It's fear. It's fear that their kids are not going to follow suit and get to heaven, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when their kids get to that point where they are questioning or differing, or doubting, they start to, the fear, it just ramps up, right? And so what happens is you go into fight or flight, and that's, they're going into fight or flight, and most of them are choosing fight.
Yeah.
And they're just becoming more pushy, and they're just pushing it on their kids and pushing it on their kids, while their kids are now going into flight.
Yeah.
And they're running as fast as they can away. And so it creates this, some kids, grow up and they're like, okay, well, this is my family and I'm just going to stick with it. But I'm not, this is a topic we're not going to approach, right? I'm just not going to talk to you about this. And some are just like, nope, I'm done. Like, I'm going to push myself away from them as much as possible because my parents, every time I'm with them, are still in fight mode and they're still pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And instead, as our kids grow, if we could just hold space for those questions and those doubts and those things and not walk in fear, but just be transparent and open and answer their questions the best we can, or, allow them to have these questions and be able to say, I don't know, and not make them feel like they're wrong for having different thoughts or having feelings or whatever, then, that tension won't be there. And, there's no fight or flight. It's just connection and doing this together.
I think some of that comes from like parents having an agenda for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like this, these expectations that aren't met, that the kid's not being who the parent really wanted them to be, or quote, I raised you better than this, or I raised you differently than this.
Yeah.
Train up a child and they will not depart. Well, that didn't work for my kid. How do you not be so rigid on your agenda for your child, and then not have that feel like an apathy or a neglect, but an actual like, even an offering? Like, this is like offering to God by choosing to not have such a tight grip. What's the dynamic with that and not having an agenda?
I mean, it's a matter of just trusting God, just trusting that, your kid has their own path, their own journey. They are who they were created to be, and they're going to go through what they go through in life. And they're going to walk their own walk and do their own thing, and not in the Christianese ways of their walk, but just in general. Yeah. They're going to walk their own walk. Like, they have to experience what they're going to experience. They have to think what they're going to think. And, if for me, like, I wholeheartedly I have trust in God. And so, my kids they're just in God's hands, and that's okay for me. And if that means that, they're going to make some decisions that I would not want them to make, then I'm just going to trust that. Like,
how do you deal with that anxiety and fear that comes around that? Or if there isn't, I guess I shouldn't.
Yeah. So for me, I've kind of gotten rid of that anxiety and fear. It's just, I really do believe that I really believe that God's good, and that that God has their own way for, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not using the right word, so I'm trying to find it. I believe that, like, I believe in the fruit of the Spirit. I believe that God is good and peaceful, and that people are going to get there in their own way. Mm-hmm. And so I'm okay with the way that my kids get there, and I have been able to let go of a lot of the fear and just kind of just trust. And another part of that really is the relationship and the foundation building with my kids, because I'm not afraid of their choices and what they think, because I talk to them and I understand them, and and they listen, like, they care about what we have to say, because we haven't been pushy, and we haven't, made them feel like what they think doesn't matter. And so, like, they actually do care about what we have to say. And so I think because there's a cohesive, just connection there and relationship, that I know they're going to talk to me. And so I don't feel afraid. I trust God, and I support my kids, and I have just kind of been able to do away with the fear that I feel like a lot of people have.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I know that there's a lot of like hopes that people, I think, put in for their kids. And being a kid, I feel that, still as a son, and then learning how to do that with my kids as well. And just trusting. Like, I really have learned just so much of just letting go and what that means, and not letting go in an apathetic way, but in a very mindful way. I almost feel like, I've learned more, honestly, about parenting and this won't be taboo to our community, but anybody that's a fan of you that's listening may feel it. Like Zen has taught me more about being a good parent than the Bible or my Christianity has, because it's about, and you mentioned some of this in certain sections of your book, not in that exact way, but I see the cross pollination of like, you know, don't say things in this way, say things like that, because it's just about being curious and flipping things into not needing to defend my preconceived notion of things, but being open. And because whenever you do that, you shut people down, not just kids, anybody. People just feel shut down.
Yeah.
And what I love what you're saying is it's about the relationship with the child first, and then there's other things that can be built, and then maybe there are disappointing moments, and maybe there's not. And on Friday, my wife and I were on a friend's podcast, and she's they're talking about having kids and things, and she mentioned on the podcast, so it's I'm not sharing anybody's stuff, whatever, but about raising kids that potentially don't need to do the healing work that we're doing. And I think that's a great virtue, but it ultimately robs kids of the human experience if you think that's going to be a reality.
Right. That's what my husband says. He's like, it's not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible. And I used to use a lot more stronger language, and my wife didn't like it as much. But basically, I'm going like reconciling in some ways, I'm going to mess my kids up. And in the best ways that I do that, even if it's the best, now there's a meme, and it's like, parents like, we're going to perfectly raise this kid. And it's a meme with a baby, and it's like a new kind of effed up, it's like,
Exactly.
It's just going to be a new kind. And this is my kind of worldview is like the first noble truth of that life is suffering. It is painful. It is disheartening. It is senses of unhappiness and despair. That's what it means to be a human. And the joy of navigating life and raising kids is helping us learn the tools to sort through the inevitable despair and hurt and pain and confusion and disorientation that life is. That's what life is. And it feels very liberating, freeing to be able to walk through life even in the same way you're talking about of like, I trust God. And then you're able to see that in fresh ways. And I feel like parenting, this is why parenting, I feel like, is a spiritual path. Like it is a path of awakening, where some of my spiritual friends, they think it maybe is, causing more karma in some ways, that they're going to, I don't know, don't really want to get into that cosmology right now. But like the point is like, kids are not a burden, they're a blessing. That's the old cliche. And I believe that. And I just feel like, though, like you're saying, relationship first. Yeah. When you build that relationship, everything else feels a safety about it, to be able to have that space, Yeah,
absolutely.
I wanted to, I know we're at time getting, not there yet, but we're getting close, and I have a few things highlighted, so I feel like I should get over to a couple of these things. You had mentioned towards the end of the book, you were mentioning about some, I liked your Christianese to avoid, and I know that this book is focused towards a distinctive Christian audience. And so some of this for our listeners may feel like they read some of it and it's kind of like, Christians really have to sort through this stuff?
Right.
Like, I'm reading through some of it and I can just, it's funny because they do. And I don't know what that is. I don't know why. I just, some of the things, and I'm not being, again, in any way, I appreciate you and the work that you're doing, but to me, I read some of the, instead of this, I'm thinking the fact that a book's got to be written about this is bizarre to me.
And it's controversial. Like some of the things I say, people are like, what? No, that's wrong.
I'm like, dude, you guys got to pop the bubble, man. You guys got to get out a little bit, Yeah. So it's like, I love you guys, but the living under the rock's not getting you anywhere. Come on now. So I do, though, I had fun reading some of this Christianese to avoid, and I would like to talk a little bit about A few of these. The first one that you mentioned is about hate the sin, love the sinner. That's a very common one. And I feel like kids, there are people that I know that have done their whole deconstruction, journey, if you will. And they've been taught this framework, love the sin, hate the sinner. And it gives them this framework that, again, it's about this very moral sort of thing, and this cliche that we don't, like you mentioned, like that it's full of cliches that are rarely in the Bible.
Right.
You write about it more in here, and about Gandhi's quote that's in here. I don't know if you want me to read it.
Sure. Yeah.
Of his response, because I know I've written things too, and a friend of mine was like, that part in the book? I'm like, dude, I wrote that a long time ago, and you're going to have to remind me. But I would love for you to speak just a little bit to this that I think would be helpful. So there's this quote, hate the sin, love the sinner. And this is something that Christians talk a lot about. It's not actually in the Bible. But Gandhi, in his autobiography, wrote, hate the sin and not the sinner is a precept which, though easy enough to understand, is rarely practiced. And that is why the poison of hatred spreads in the world. Says Gandhi's full quote recognized the fact that it's practically impossible to focus on someone's, quote, sin without having some sort of negative feelings arise. I love, first of all, that you include Gandhi in your book, because that was the thing that got Rob Bell in hot water all those years ago with Love Wins. And I just love how commonplace it is now, that we're just like, yes, Gandhi had wisdom and he's not burning in hell. Thank you. But for some of the things like that, how do you begin to show your kids? This kind of harkens back to the beginning of, like, how do you show your kids like what love is beneath what our conceptions of our belief systems are? Does it have to be strictly through this worldview that shows us the doctrines of what, quote, sin even is, what love is, or like how are you imparting to your kids throughout the years this sort of like just all-encompassing love for just people, where they're at, and not judging if they're worthy of it or not, So
Yeah, well, we one of the main things I think that the idea of hating the sin but not the sinner does is it still names a behavior in identifying a human being, and that human being is not that behavior. And especially for kids, they're not like cognitively able yet to separate behavior and who someone is, right? So they if they are told this right here is a bad behavior, but you need to love this person anyway, they, no matter how good your intentions are, they're going to connect the two. And so that's not even something that they can quite comprehend yet. And for us, in using that phrase and in thinking like that, we are kind of robbing people of their identity and their humanity by looking at whatever this behavior is that we may feel is wrong. We're kind of, that's how we're seeing them. That's the lens we see them with, instead of just seeing them as a human being, instead of just seeing them as someone worthy of love. And so instead we try to teach our kids just, to love people, that, when we look at what sin is, we kind of feel like it's the opposite of the fruit of the Spirit, right? If God is love and goodness and patience and gentleness and mercy, well, then sin is the opposite of what God is. Sin is the opposite of those things. And so it's not this behavior that we're like, oh, that person does that, hate that, but love them,
Right.
which it's, in fact, when we're identifying them by a behavior, in fact, we are not doing that work of loving. So I would say that, in fact, if we're going to look at sin like that, then we're the ones in sin then,
Yes.
you
Come
know?
on. Yeah,
So,
that's good.
yeah.
That's good. And I feel like that has to do with you. Kids pick up all of this stuff.
They do.
They just
They
do. Like
do.
maybe you could mention a little bit of that, of like how you've seen your kids just be sponges for all of that.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, they're there and they are aware and they learn from us, from everything we do and everything that we say. And, if we're walking around with judgment for other people and we're calling out things about someone else that we think are wrong, then our kids pick up on that. It's just, it's just the concept that, that violence begets violence. It's when what we are putting out for our children, they are taking in, and it is, it's becoming a part of their foundation. And it is something that they could break away from in the future.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of work and a lot of healing and a lot of growth. And sometimes it takes distancing, and that's not what we want as parents. Excuse me. So, instead if we could be intentional about what we are doing and what we are saying and the example that we are setting, then, our kids can take that in. I always say that parenting is like 90% about us. It's about who we are and what we think and what we do and what we believe and how we talk and all of that. Because that's what our kids learn from more than anything else.
That's so funny that you mentioned the 90%, because I flipped to this last part that I wanted to talk to you about, because I want to respect your time. I know we're already there. Are you okay for just another question?
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't know if you have like another one of these to get to. I want to respect your time. So,
thank you. No.
You just mentioned the 90%. Okay, so I literally have this highlighted here. Your last chapter, 13, A Comfort and a Hope. And we'll just skip down to this part. I don't know, maybe I'll read the whole thing for folks. But you mentioned a verse from Isaiah at the very beginning. And I'll just skip down to some of this. Though our children may make us angry, and though they may defy, though they may turn the other way, though they may make mistakes, though they may have differing opinions, though they may choose what we would not, though they may do wrong, we turn away from our anger. This we might comfort them. That we might comfort them. Parenting is 90% about us, the parents. It's about how we feel, how we react, the things we say, how we respond. It's about whether we are intentional with our words or not, whether we have grace or not, whether we get angry or not, and whether we are a safe place for our children or not. I know you wrote that, but probably a little bit of time ago, I'm sure. But that was just such a great capstone to so much of this. And there's still more, and you have a great story, from World War II after that. But I feel like that is so important, and that's what's taught me so much about parenting. And this is where some of the, other traditions have taught me that it's about it's about me and what I am protecting and projecting all the time. And my kids are subject to that as much as anybody else outside of me is. Oh, the perception of outside of me, I suppose. But how did you get to that place? Like, and this is kind of a big question, but this has to do with a different posture of parenting than the other. Like, where one has to do with just trying to get kids to be right, do right, think right, act right. This is a different posture completely than some of the familiar forms and models. Like, how did you get to that being sort of your foundation?
Yeah. For me, it was just a matter of, one, kind of deconstructing parenting beliefs.
Yeah.
And at the same time as just really diving into who Jesus was as a person and the message that he preached, and connecting those two. I just realized that that's, we especially as Christians, we tell people that's what you're supposed to do for the world. Go out and blah, 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 and love people and, feel like, act like Jesus. But we don't do that with our kids. Instead, with them, we're like, you better do this or else you're not going to make it. We do it totally differently. And I had to completely erase those ideas and just go, no, I'm going to love my kids like Jesus would. So.
And I think too, like you said, 90% about how we feel. And I think Christianity is so much about, like, it's not about you. It's about them. It's about the unbeliever. It's about the not yet saved. Right. It's about, and it's like, well, if the vehicle doesn't have gas in it, it ain't going to go to whoever those arbitrary people are.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're stating here is, it's about the temple of who you are being that actual dwelling place in you first. And that's so much of the language and the heart of what we do is I believe, that the kingdom is at hand. It's among you. It's around you. It's also within you.
Right.
And I think you have to drop into that is true within you first, because if there's not a deposit, everybody around you needs a withdrawal, kids or spouse or friends or whoever it might be. Everybody's taking withdrawals from you all the time. If you don't have anything in there to give to them, it's going to overdraft that account, and that's where you're going to be bogged down, and you're going to act out of anger, and then you're going to be frustrated that God's not giving you what you needed. Well, God did. We didn't actually go inside enough to cultivate that, though, I think, to be able to give that to other people. And so your approach is much different than that. It's saying you have to take responsibility for your own growth and maturity before you can invite a child into growth and maturity. How can I grow and mature a child if I'm not really on the inside?
Right.
So, I just feel like that's a great thing to give people, especially people that are in this sort of space that are receiving this book. People need that right now. And we should have started here, but I guess as we the book's title is Words Like Honey, and words are so important. I think that words, they are not the truth, but they point to a truth. That's kind of my thing that I say a lot. But there are words that cut, and there are words that are heal. There's all sorts of things that happen with that. But maybe you can just share as we close here, words like honey, even though you didn't like honey, and then you learned how to like honey. What does that meant for you?
Yeah.
That sort of language. Yeah.
Yeah. Honey is, it's healing, and as a property, it actually is healing for the body. And so, and that's what words like honey is, right? We can, with our words, with the things that we say and teach our kids, we can, help them to be whole and heal where they need to heal.
Yeah. It's really good. Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming and sharing and inviting people into your world. And
thank you.
I know that there's going to be people that would like some guidance with some of this. So where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Simple Little Amy, and my website is simplelittleamy.com.
Cool. We'll put all the links below. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.